It's a very good question. We all know that an election is coming in October of this year. We know that Prime Minister Harper has been very actively courting the Ukrainian vote. We all are, I think, quite aware of all of the things that he has done in terms of supporting the new government in Ukraine. So, does that entitle him to the Ukrainian vote in Canada? And the best way to answer that is a couple of things to consider here. One, is the future of Ukraine and Canada's policy in Ukraine the most important issues for Ukrainian Canadians? If you are a diehard Ukrainian patriot supporter of Ukraine and that is the most important issue to you, then by all means vote for Prime Minister Harper. I would suggest, though, that a lot of Ukrainians, like here in Canada, are not dissimilar from all the other Canadians, that there are many issues that concern us. The economy, the unemployment, the things like the pipeline, climate change, ecology, on and on and on. So you basically have to ask yourself which party is going to address the issues best. No doubt Harper is taking a leadership role on the Ukrainian issue. The problem, though, is what would Trudeau or Mulcair do if they got elected? And this is one of the big issues I have in terms of addressing should we vote for the Liberal Party versus the Conservative Party. None of the other parties have really put out a clear-cut statement on what they would do vis-a-vis Ukraine should they get elected. And I've actually even asked Boris Vishnevsky, one of the candidates, what is Trudeau's position on this? What would he do? And I did not get a clear-cut answer because I don't think there is one right now. I don't know that Justin Trudeau has thought a whole hell of a lot. And I think it behooves the Ukrainian electorate, and to do this, I think it should be a prime task of our Ukrainian community representatives in the form of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, Paul Grod or whoever, to basically contact the leaders of the two opposition parties, the Liberals and the NDP, and ask them for a definitive statement. What would their policy be? Like, Paul Grod needs to go to Justin and say, all right, if we elect you Prime Minister, what would you do vis-a-vis Ukraine? Would you carry on the policies of support that Harper's doing? Would you do something different? And if so, what? We need to know what your policy is on Ukraine. And same thing with Tom Mulcair. But we need to hear a clear-cut statement from Tom Mulcair. What does he think of the situation in Ukraine and what Putin is doing there? And what would he do should he become Prime Minister? We need that kind of clear-cut statement from both Mulcair and from Trudeau. And then I think we can make a reasonable judgment as to who to vote in. So first, we need to know what we are voting for. Right now, I think we know what we would get if we voted for Stephen Harper, at least as far as Ukraine is concerned. We have no idea of what we would get if Justin Trudeau was Prime Minister, Tom Mulcair was Prime Minister. So before the election, I hope that Paul Grod and the Ukrainian Canadian Congress and our, I guess, candidates that are within those parties, within the NDP and within the Liberal parties, would reach out to their leader to issue such a statement, to make clear what their policies would be, and then we decide who best to vote for. So I'm not obviously coming out in clear-cut support of any of them because, frankly, right now I do not have a good feel for what I would get except for Prime Minister Harper. And although I am a great admirer of his Ukrainian platform, I disagree with some of the other things that he has done, or the way that he has done him over the time that he's been Prime Minister. So it's a little bit of who best fits in with your priorities, and to make that assessment, you need to have a better understanding of what the platforms are of the different parties, and right now they're a bit of a vacuum when it comes to Ukraine. As you know, I would hope you know, that each of the political parties we have in Canada has Ukrainian candidates. So by voting or not voting for a particular Ukrainian candidate, I think that doesn't indicate one way or another that you are voting pro-Ukrainian or anti-Ukrainian.
Okay.
I think it basically reflects the fact that, you know, you have a certain political leaning to begin with, that you're a conservative or liberal or you know, a socialist, and you are voting for the party that on all the things that are important to you best match with your political leanings. I don't like even the concept of voting on one issue, unless it is a real existential issue, of voting for a particular leader on just one issue because of a stand on one issue. You've got to look at all of the things that are important to you, you know, in your life as a Canadian citizen, and as a Ukrainian Canadian citizen. Obviously, supporting Ukraine is an important issue, but it is not the only issue I'm concerned of. I'm concerned about healthcare. I'm concerned about the economy. I'm concerned about you know, climate change and global warming. I'm concerned about all of these things, and you know, I want all of them addressed to a more or less satisfactory level. So I'm going to vote for the party and the leader that best covers the whole broad spectrum of important issues. And I have 4 or 5 important issues that are very near and dear to me. One of them is support for Ukraine, but it's not the only one. So it's not a simple answer, and you cannot reduce, you know, I'm going to vote for Harper because he's a strong supporter of Ukraine. Well, yeah, but is he also a strong supporter of Canada? Is he also a strong supporter of, you know, a just society, an open and transparent society? Is he a good supporter of, you know, the kind of economics that are going to make Canada a strong player on the global scene? Is he a strong supporter of policies that will make sure that my kids get a job? You know, when you ask your typical Ukrainian, yeah, you know, he's a great supporter of Ukraine, but what if he puts in place something that's going to ensure that your kids who are going through school now are not going to be able to find a job when they graduate? Which is more important to you? The fact that your kids don't get a job, or that, you know, Ukraine is well supported? You cannot simplify it to such black and white terms. It's, you know, we're living in a complicated time and age where it's not just one issue. We have to be able to deal concurrently with all the important issues that affect our lives. So no simple answers on this one. But what is important is that we get clear-cut statements of position on these issues from all the party leaders. And one of them is, of course, the Ukrainian issue. And so far, we know where Harper stands. We don't know where Justin Trudeau stands. We don't know where Thomas Mulcair stands. So we need to get that out of them before the election, and then we'll have a better basis on which to be able to make political judgments as to who to vote for.